Hello fellow gamer boys and gamer girls, it's time for another Inferno coaching slash VOD review, and this one's going to be from Incoxicated, who is currently trying to go for a sub 55, and this is one of his recent runs which ended on around 56:30. So this is going to be a run with no ancestral and chins, and interestingly enough a crystal shield, because he's, as his RSN might suggest, broke as hell, and occasionally gets an early loan, but has been doing a lot of runs with Crystal Shield, which makes for interesting gameplay. So let's dive in. This is from his Twitch VOD, and if you're interested in watching him do some live runs, I'll make sure to leave his links in the description. So as before, I'll try not to roast too hard, but we will go through and have a look at some of the things that he's doing right and some of the things he's doing wrong. I will say he's definitely had a lot of improvements in the last sort of week or so. He's been getting a lot more consistent, which is really nice to see. So I do think the sub 55 is very close. So to start off here, first thing that jumps to mind is camera angle. Camera angle does tend to matter quite a lot when it comes to these early waves, for two reasons. Firstly, just being able to have a nice position for clicking, and secondarily so that you can actually see everything. Now, of course, in some cases, you don't need to see where things are attacking you from because it's abundantly obvious. For example, if you see everything but the one spot where the thing could spawn, and there's nothing in those spots, then it must be in that other spot. And I know some players play like that, but I think it's really beneficial to play a bit more vertical and to zoom out a bit more, especially in the early waves. Starting position, a little bit odd here, and I'd like to see some more consistency with the positioning once again of both the player and the character. Nice little 240 there. Again, we're not going to be going through every single detail, it's just about the overall big stuff that's going right and wrong. So, like, in terms of starting position, this is fine, but where I like to start is a little bit further to the northeast, and this means that any bat coming from your west side, near the west pillar, drags on the line of the nibblers, and this is just a little thing to do with chin mechanics and making sure that they stack up nicely. I'll try and point out a couple of other examples where the chin could be thrown from that starting line as things are dragging. Where he's standing right now is, in fact, the line that is really nice to start on. So more consistency with the start point would be good. A bit of a vengeance tactic coming in here. Not sure if that was legit or not. I think someone just gave that to him on the outside. And of course, the other thing with sub 55 is that we're not really going to be looking too much at like all the little time saves when it comes to killing blobs first and things. They do tend to matter here, and you should do it when possible, but it's not necessary. This is all fine. I like the crystal shield delay there. I don't think it's too relevant, but I mean, for the first hit, I mean, there's definitely no harm in doing that. For the double nibbler waves like this, I think it's worth standing a bit closer, just to have slightly less delay on the barrage, if there is even any. I'm not sure there might be, but no reason to have any of that. And here, this is fine. As long as we're not dragging that melee, it's okay. Way too many ticks lost with a melee drag. So again, I think camera angle is actually the first and most important thing currently. Here I would leave that nibbler alive on that pillar. So we'll see if he goes and kills it. Don't click it! Don't do it! Ooh, okay, I'm going to pause here. This is an interesting thing. So this is actually a good chin if there were two or more nibblers. When it comes down to it, I'm going to pause on this for a minute because this is an important talking point for using chins against this very specific scenario. It does come up quite a lot. When you're chinning things on the pillar, especially south like this, it's only worth doing under a couple of very special circumstances, and this is because of the 2-tick delay on the melee, and your chances of actually killing things when you chin them. So, as a rule of thumb, if you have one nibbler on the pillar and a melee alive, if your chin does not have the damage required to kill that melee, it's not worth doing under any circumstances. The one exception would be if there are 3 nibblers on the pillar and you just want them off the pillar, you may as well chin it since you're going to anyway. This also doesn't apply if there are other things alive, like bats, because bats, obviously, you can kill it after you kill the melee, so that's also fine. We're talking about just a melee and 1, 2, or 3 nibblers. And without going like super in depth, the conclusion that we looked into this like a week or two ago, and the conclusion is that if there are 2 or more nibblers on the pillar, it is a good idea to chin them in the circumstance where the melee is likely to die from half of your max hit of the chin. So like, you know, if the melee's 20 HP, 15 HP, sure, at that point you launch your chin to try and kill it all in one clump. But in this case, where there's 1 nibbler and 1 melee, even if you kill them together, it's still going to be better to try and just kill the melee first instead, because of the way the death animation overlaps. It's just more likely that your blow height pool will be able to do the damage. So as a rule of thumb, 2 nibblers at least, and likely to kill the melee. Otherwise, just kill the melee, then chin the nibblers. It seems really weird that that's how it would be, but it's an important enough point to stop at, because it's definitely one of the big, like, once you start getting used to chins, it's one of the big mistakes people make, and it just loses time when they're trying to do things that make sense. So, right. This is good here. Again, you wouldn't, you know, under more ideal circumstances, you wouldn't want to kill the bat there, because sure, it's annoying to tank the bat, but 2 ticks is 2 ticks, and that's a very easy 2 ticks to save. In a more stressful scenario, sure, maybe you don't kill it, but that was free. I would have left that alive. So here, coming back around the north pillar to drag that blob closer. The slightly better thing to do would have been, of course, to go after the southern blob and let the melee drag towards it. And this does 2 things. One, it allows you to kill the blob first for sure, instead of the melee like that, and now you lose the 2 ticks here on the blob. And the second thing is that it brings the melee into the southern side of the blob, where the southwest tiles are stacking, and you can create a nice chin stack for the melee. So whenever you see this sort of north side melee, you always want to try and drag it to southern blobs. We're definitely going to get a lot more... I'll do a lot more commentary on the chins here, because the last one of these I did, the first one of these I did, was with no chins, so... Right, so we know that blob is over on the other side. This is what I was saying earlier, where like we know where the NPC is. You don't have to necessarily see it to know what it is and what it's doing. So this is fine, and it wasn't an awkward position. One idea in this, I'm not going to go back to it, but one idea in this is to perhaps have it so you drag the melee round the pillar to the south side a little bit, and once the melees come round, then you can pull it towards the blob yet again. So this prevents you from having that travel distance to the blob. But yeah, here I think the play would have been to just stay on the north side and definitely kill the melee, because it's caused some issues here for no good reason. So just taking your time and then making sure that you would path out north is no real problem, because whenever you click from that side, you're always going to drag out here. Nice chin stack with the bat. Good idea to leave it alive. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Not a great barrage, that's a shame. This is always awkward. The nice and easy solution would be to go to the southern side of the pillar and just 2-tick alternate those 2 blobs on a nice cycle, and then deal with the melee, and then go after the southern blob. This works fine too. This is like 1 or 2 tick loss, no big deal. And as a rule of thumb, I personally like to kill my southern blob first in this scenario, and then go after the northeast one. Just makes life a little bit easier, because it comes around the pillar better. But again, this is not bad execution at all. I've watched a lot of Incoxicated streams as well, so I know roughly how he plays. One thing to add to this, it's not been too apparent in the run itself, but one thing he needs to do a bit more is to have this premonition of the mouse movement and really put his mouse where he wants it to be. So like, think ahead of time. This again is like not a good chin. If there's only 1 nibbler on the pillar, not worth it. Kill the melees first, then deal with it. And again, there are exceptions where, like, if you just want to save your pillar, then by all means kill the nibbler, and in doing so, chinning is good. Right, double nibbler wave, another 250, very nice. And we are progressing forward at about 6 minutes and 52 seconds. So from a sub 50 quote unquote run, we're about 30 to 40 seconds behind, like a really solid pace. But for a sub 55, great, no problems here. You can definitely tell the difference between Crystal and Ellie will be a big difference on mini blobs. They just tend to hit that little bit more accurately and a little bit harder, so Can't say I don't, again. I can't say I'm the biggest fan of the camera angle. Some players really don't think it matters too much. I'm always a big advocate for having consistency with starting positions and things. I think it helps a lot. That and playing a bit more vertical yet again. So, but I mean, yeah, it can be preference. It can be not. So, good starting position. I would have started one further to the south here, again for consistency's sake, and also for if I have northwest bats. So if a bat spawns where this ranger is, and it's pulling towards you, you can then chin the stack that is going to the west pillar directly and always hit it, but if you stand one north, you can't do that, so... Consistency for the sake of consistent chin usage, in this case. Nice. That was an example of like having a bit of thought about mouse movement and positioning, because now instead of so he's killed the blob first, which is good. It's what you should try and do generally. But it's not just about killing the blob first. It's about utilizing 2 ticks as those. Sorry, it's about utilizing the 3 ticks, whatever, 2 blowpipe hits worth of time as the blob dies. And in this case, sure, the blob was killed first, but what actually was accomplished from that? Nothing, because he was busy moving there. So an alternative to this is to, if you're not there in time, kill the ranger first and go to the south pillar to drag the blob in. Maybe not kill the ranger, but get it pretty close to death, right? And then kill the blob when it's closer in a nice position. You know, you see how this plays out. It's a slightly easier way to go about it. Ranger in safe spot and bat dead. This is fine. And a nice 240 as well. Again, moving over to the blob is like ideal, but sure, it has to be. You have to utilize the ticks within killing the blob for them to be worthwhile. Otherwise, why do it? Blowpipe is going off a bit here. That was an example here of being 1 tick out of range for the blowpipe to get the bat. That's something that you can think about. The way I sort of deal with it is I don't think about the range too much. I just tend to pre-move, so if I'm in that position, I'll always move a tile ahead so that I'm a tile away from the blob melee. And I just know that's like my range, sort of thing. Good chin follow-up. I always think it's important to go after those West Nibbler chins, West Nibblers. Here again, I wouldn't actually deal with that blob right now. 2 ticks spent running over there are now lost. 2 ticks here spent not attacking things while it's dying are lost. So that's 4 ticks. That's actually tick lost from going for that blob, as opposed to going for the ranger and dragging the other blobs in. So this is an important note here. There's the time save that we want to see with that chin on the ranger. That's what we want to see on every single one of these blob kills in order to maximize the time efficiency that you gain from killing those blobs early. So I'll keep pointing this out because it is an important thing. If you are going to kill blobs first, you have to make it worthwhile. You have to use those ticks, otherwise there's no point generating them in the first place. This is a nice pillar safe spot for the melee, works well. I like to move a bit closer to the ranger, which he's doing here. Very nice, very nice. Oh, I misclick, unfortunate, but that's fine. The intention was there, that's all that matters. There's a nice little thing you can do where you go to the corner of the melee on each of these pillars and it gives you 1 extra tile of range. An unfortunate blood barrage there. And a little bit of time loss, panicking about it. It is what it is. Good reaction for the melee prey, that's definitely the play. I would have started, in this case, I like... If I have the NPC under control at this stage, I just start moving towards the ranger directly. I mean, sure, you want to kill the nibbler, but like after killing the nibbler, just start moving, because spawns that are this far back on the south side take another, 2 ticks to get to. It's really annoying. And melees can die in 6 ticks. They can die in 3 blowpipe pits, or even like 2 if you spec it. So, really being aggressive once you have control of NPCs is worthwhile. That's an example where if you start on that line, you can always get that second chin in, and you shouldn't usually be dragged towards NPCs or the chin spot, and if you do, you're dragged into a range you can pray against. But nice little chin finish there. I don't think that was a... Not sure he got the tick timing on that bat, but yeah. Not a bad wave. One ranger die. There we go. So we're looking at a 1036 into ranger and melee, which is a good time. 1030 is like the upper limit of what you want for a sub 50 yet again, so he's really pulling some time here. This is an interesting idea. Yeah, this is something I probably would end up doing. When you're doing this, you need to make sure to also drag the melee around, because if the purpose of dragging the blob here is to... Ah, there we go, nice. Okay, so he did actually get the hit off there. The melee's probably going to take care if he's not... There it is. Not careful. So the only problem with this is, like, you got to know your timing on the damage output you have and how long it's going to take things to die. So sure, dragging the blob over to that pillar isn't a bad idea in itself, but getting control of that melee, or being in a position to maybe drag things to the north pillar when you're on the east side works just as well. It's an awkward wave though, to be fair. Very awkward wave. In this position, I like to personally move 2 tiles to the west, and that allows you to get a very nice instant chin or a 1-tick delay blowpipe onto that blob if you run prematurely. And here I would start moving a little bit further south so I don't get dragged awkwardly when I chin, like... No, that was fine. Sometimes you'll get dragged if you're not quite in the right position there, but that was okay. Another note for using chins here. As a rule of thumb, because of the 240 XP each NPC in the mini blob clump takes 80 XP to die approximately, and if you're in a position where you are going to drag your NPCs away from each other, in most cases where you hit an 80 XP drop or above, it's better to switch to blowpipe, and in most cases where you're in a clump and you hit a 160 or more, better to switch to blowpipe yet again. So just a little note on sort of when to switch. In other words, if you know that 2 NPCs are likely to be dead, you should probably switch, right? It's a bit awkward here. I've seen worse solutions. the melee from that ranger really isn't going to do too much, so honestly this is fine. If anything, the bat is the more annoying NPC right now. Okay, they both died in one hit. It's awkward, it's a bit scary. It's not as scary as you might think, but this is, yeah. So I think the intention here is to drag NPCs towards that pillar and just have them stack. If you want to do this, you have to be tucked into that corner. You can't really stay in the open down there. But yeah, a bit of an awkward one going there. And I think it would probably be worthwhile going around the back of the north pillar, letting the melee drag across and coming back over to the west side. So like if you were to stand over here where he is now and then do this exact thing here, you have control of the melee a bit better, and then you can figure out what to do after that. But again, not the easiest of waves to deal with. Here you definitely want to drag things closer. So, well, I mean, there's 2 schools of thought. You can either go very far into the pillar, or you can get a good chin and immediately start moving back around. This is probably the better thing to do. So, a good wave here. Any chinning on the ranger? Nope. So definitely try and go for the chin on the ranger there. You can drag around this side of the pillar here and very easily get a chin or a T-bow off, and still play on this side of the pillar to drag the melee to where it needs to be. So like the melee is always going to be moving about here, but you can always drag him back to a central spot by just going around the pillar. So yeah, this is fine. Yep, good play. Safe spot stuff, go kill it. West pillar taking a bit of a beating. I think 3 nibblers are alive, or 2 are alive. It'll survive for a few more waves though. One thing to note here, which is not the biggest of deals, but you want to move around to the west side, which he's doing here. Okay, that was fine. There's a bit of delay in the actual attack over there, but the idea is sound, because if you end up going around the east side, then sometimes your ranger dies before you can even get to the nibblers. Okay, on to double ranger. Wouldn't personally bother taking armor off for this, but yeah. In this case, you can probably reach the rangers directly, so yeah, he's doing the right thing. No reason dragging it to that other pillar when you can essentially reach it within a good blowpipe run distance. So we're going to be going into Nibblers at about 17:30, 17:35. And we'll be out of this into Majors at about 17:50-ish. Right, first wave's here. My initial note is to not barrage this for HP. The way I see it is sort of on easy waves like this, you have a lot of time to gain by using chins and not having to worry about the complexity of the wave. So even if you're, 20, 30 HP, you can definitely get away with chinning. And especially with a blowpipe spec available and like bats available, you can very easily barrage them. You can very easily phantom them and spec them for really good heals early on. This is probably a note that even I have to think about. I more often than not, I don't really think about this too much, but I personally have started chinning way harder now in the last sort of 4 or 5 days, just really pushing the HP. And you can get away with it. Until about major blob and NPC, then you have to start thinking about, if I'm 20 HP, I should probably barrage. Good blowpipe usage here. Let's see. I'd start a bit further up in the center here, but as it turns out, it pays off. And a nice, I think that was a good phantom on the two of them. Don't know if that's the play. Stray Nibbler? I think it's better to hit the major. Again, these are pretty minor things. I haven't noticed any like major problems, with the exception of maybe the blob killing time. Again, if you're going to go kill blobs, then make sure you use the ticks available, otherwise don't use them at all. Otherwise don't like prioritize them, I guess. Shout out killing the major first. Only a little issue there. I guess these things do add up though. Yeah, no reason to not just fully commit to the major in that scenario. I think there was a tick or two lost there to sort of like mouse pre-movement again. There's no reason to not just sort of like hover your mouse over the item and try and put it into position early as needed. Oh, saved the 2 ticks in the blob there, very nice. Lost 1 running over, it is a net time save. So here, when the XP drop was 165 as a group, unless there's a Slayer XP from something else, which in this case there wasn't, that's the flat XP you hit. And in this case, it's better to switch to blowpipe as soon as you see 165, because that means at least 2 blobs worth of HP have been dealt. So it's, sure, all 3 of them could be alive, but the chances of this are pretty low. It's more than likely that 2 died and 1 took some damage, or, But blowpiping for 4 ticks when you could have had a chin for 3, it's really minor. And it's better than just potentially noodling a bad chin or whatever it may be. Good tick save here on the 2 before. A decent chin. Okay. This is more like the angle at which I like to start my waves camera-wise, so... Pulling the major in, I think this is fine. You can either decide to run over to the major in this case and flick the blob, or you can pull him in and get the blob on the pillar. I don't think there's a big difference between the 2 of these options, really. So that was finally done. The only thing that's relevant would be to say to try and leave a bat alive for the blob, but... yeah, I guess if you choose to not go for the major immediately, then you might have problems with the blob not having anything to do while it dies. Not having anything to do while the blob dies. For this wave in particular, it's in my opinion, like as long as you're proficient with 2-ticking, there's not really a reason to like not stand right in the center. There's a couple of waves like this, but anytime you have like no bats on the field, I just think it's better to start in the center. And if you do have bats and you're good HP, then there's no reason why you can't just play hyper aggressive. So, food for thought. Nothing wrong with the starting position as long as it gets to every NPC in time and actually make use of the available tiles and things, but yeah. Right idea here to go for the ranger and leave the melee alive because the melee drags. This is good. Gotta make use of those ticks though. Yeah, definitely gotta make use of those ticks more. It's not the easiest concept to get right as well, so... Right, on to Major and Melee. So this is, again, there's no bats on the field. I would just play hyper aggressive. There was a wave earlier that he did with Ranger and Melee, and he started like right up front, and as soon as the melee spawned, he just prays range into melee, catches the melee, and has it in control. The same is true for this. It's a little bit more scary, sure, and the HP's, you know, but ultimately he's competent enough that that would be a good option in this case. It's not even the case that it might save time on this particular wave. It's one of those things that if on a wave like this, out of 10 runs, it saves you a tick, no reason why it wouldn't be something worth incorporating. That's kind of the name of the game at this stage when you're going at this pace. It's about, not everything you do has to have an immediate effect. It's just about, will these things add up over time? Will these things have a benefit to me over a period of, you know, 10, 15 runs if I do these little things each time? And some of them will become habit and some of them will become easy. Here it's better to just, instead of killing it, go an off ticket, of course. For when you're going for, let's say, sub 60, I tell people just kill the melee. You kill it fast enough, a respawn doesn't matter. At this stage, off ticking for sure. It may be an HP thing where he's a bit concerned about his low HP, but ultimately I think he can flick just fine enough, so yeah, this is the problem. Respawn time. I'd say just be more confident. He knows what he's doing, just needs to assume that he can get the flicks off and give it a go. And in that case, try kill the melee first, leave the bat alive, so you can always go around to the south side of the melee there. And then, of course, leave the lob till last. Leave the bat till last. This is an awkward bat spawn. Kill the bat first. Kill the bat. Kill the bat. Kill the bat! There we go. Don't kill the melee, leave it alive. Kill Major. Very good. And off tick. Yeah, see? You can do it. I know for a fact that melee is low. So this is one of the scenarios where I'd say to myself, well, actually, I probably don't want to go behind that melee because it's so low. And yeah, okay, he handled it perfectly. He already knew it was low and then took the time to kill the melee off from that position. Perfect. No flaws there. Okay, this is an interesting thing. I'm just pausing for a second because I need a second to explain this. On a clumped nibbler there, he landed... I kind of want to go back, but it's going to mess up the position in the VOD. I'm pretty sure he landed a splash on that... okay, I do need to go back. Ooh, hang on, I'll go back using things. Yeah. I just noticed this out the corner of my eye sort of thing. This is... Okay, yeah, okay. I thought these were separate, and they are. So, 84 XP lands on one of these guys up here. And my gut reaction is like, I can't do anything with that stack. To me, that just means one of them is dead, because this XP drop means you killed one. And in this case, because he clicked on that stack, these two are by default separate, and there's no NPC over here you can chin with, which means, for me, that's just like, leave it the fuck alone. Take a step back and deal with something else. And I would just go hit the Major here, because it's such a free position, and it lets things drag in. Because he barraged, he managed to get the second one off there, but it's like... I don't know. I guess if you're barraging, you can get away with that. If you're chinning for time, you definitely can't go after that. And I think if it was going to a different pillar, then maybe it's a bit more awkward depending on the spawn. Because nibblers get to west pillar pretty quickly, as it turns out. I think they take the longest to get to north. I don't think, someone please tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's the same amount of time to get to each pillar. It doesn't feel like it anyway. Maybe it depends on the spawns. I might just be completely fucking wrong. But yeah, that was just my sort of like gut reaction to that, was pay attention to the XP drop and be like, do I have to, you know, worry about that? Maybe I'm overcomplicating things a little bit. It doesn't always have to be that complex. Sometimes it's just click the boss. So killing the melee on this wave, I think, was the right play. Nice bow hits. Very nice. We do not complain about this. Some waves like this, you really can't save the 2 blowpipe hits intermittently. Oh, that was another 160 XP drop. And that's another example of like XP drop 160. I know it's a flat number. Switch to blowpipe immediately. And in this case, there was in fact just one alive. So the Chin killed it, but it's like it's losing a tick regardless. It doesn't matter too much for the final NPC alive, because if it's the final NPC and you've killed it, as long as the travel time's the same, then you're not losing a tick. But for the purposes of, again, across multiple runs and multiple examples of killing things, having that tick time save, it's going to be relevant. This is an interesting play. This does safe spot the melee, however, you now have the problem of dealing with the blob and getting to the blob. So I would have chosen a slightly different route here to path that melee. Not terrible though. I mean, it's a couple of seconds lost though. Low stam here. As someone who doesn't like to use their last stam dose myself, I can relate to not wanting to pop that, although these days I kind of just do. But definitely, in my mind, I'd be thinking like, okay, how do I conserve stam here, and what waves are coming up that might prevent me from, you know, might drain me of my run, so. Good off tick, I think. Might have lost the tick on the blowpipe, not too sure, should be fine though. The melee won't dig for a few seconds here, and even if it does, I don't really classify it as a problem. I wouldn't personally say spot this. I don't think there's too much of a reason to. This is not a bad way to go as well though. I would just move a bit further to the south side of the pillar over here where my mouse is now. And then you can still chin them all from there. You can still attack the 2 blobs and the melee still safe spotted, so. Maybe just a difference of procedure. I don't think there's any real like difference here. Major double melee, another wave where I like to start a bit further up to the center of the room. In this case, no biggie deal. I don't think there was any tick loss here. Just came round and did an east side drag. You can definitely move one more tile up here. There it is. Right on cue. And incidentally, from this position, I don't know if he's going to, but you can chin these nibblers from this position right here. You can't do it from that tile. And this green marker also indicates the furthest chin tile, I think, for him. It's a very weird position, though. Gotta leave that nibbler to last, and he's doing just that. One important thing is to not drag onto it, so as long as this is the maximum blowpipe range, that's fine. But if you drag onto it and you don't kill the melee, or you do kill it and you drag too soon, then of course that's a tick loss. Good off tick here. Not the humble ranger that we want, but it is what it is. I would wait for those nibblers to clump. And it appears he has done exactly that. So I would have probably attacked them a little bit earlier in this case, because once they are clumped, there's no reason to not attack them. But yeah, no problem here. Good blowpipe running, no ticks lost. Any spec users? Nope, but a good phantom to follow up. All the stats on the top up here are pretty low, so just a bit of an annoying situation, but range mage is one of those times where you really have enough time to mess around with it, so... I wouldn't have gone that hard to try and save that pillar, personally. I can appreciate that the blood barrage was relevant, and I think I think he missed the range flick there, but yeah. No problem. Good safe spotting here. He may be saving his spec for a useful moment when he's in jeopardy. I don't really know. And honestly, that's probably a better idea than what I was saying, to just use it for HP for the sake of it. Maybe I have a thing or two to learn. Yeah, I still wouldn't go that hard after those nibblers and that pillar. There's an example again. That was just, I want to re-showcase this. It was only one tick here. I'll even slow it down for a second. This is only one tick's worth of time, and he's got his mouse over the bow right now. But that XP drop is a 91 on a 40, and we know that's dead. At least I know that's dead. So this here is a tick loss on the blowpipe, and there's no reason for this, because if you see the XP drop, what's the worst that happens if you just commit to the major? The bat hits you, you go back around this side of the pillar, you kill the bat on another XP drop, problem solved. And it's better to commit and take a little bit of HP damage than it is to lose the time switching to the bow. One of my sort of more favorite sayings these days is like, you can always get HP back, you can't get time back. So that's kind of what it comes down to here. That's a bit of a scary way to approach going for the ranger. It's by no means a bad one. The better way is to slide yourself across the pillar over here, because the ranger is trapped due to the position of the major and vice versa, so you can always slide back and forth. I'm sure he's seen that kind of movement before. It's kind of a fun / popular one for people to do. That's the right way to deal with this wave. Good off tick. I like to come just one tile across there, and I have a very precise click to do this. Prevents things from over there from seeing me if it's fast enough. This blob would never actually get an attack off, and even if it did, it would be on the right prayers, so this is fine. Nice off tick for the blob. Very brave there doing the second hit. Any blob respawners? Yay, there it is. Okay, yeah. I unfortunately am never a fan of going for that kind of thing. I'm just too scared for doing that in my runs, and as it seems, for good reason. There are times when sometimes you'll risk a hit, but that felt like a bit of a needless hit, so yeah, more attention to XP drops and timings and things. Just the little things that matter. AIDS, yeah, well, you did it to yourself, buddy. Didn't take too much time out though. Is it weird that I expect a melee to spawn now? Okay, nice free wave, bat over here, decent barrage. Good bow hit to start us off. That blob should drag in and not see him, which is good. At this point, I'd consider coming round, which he is doing very nice. Ah, okay. So a better idea here. I'll jump back here. A better idea in this scenario is, as soon as you throw that, because you're on range prey for this, the blob is by default going to be mage. So the second you even see the XP drop, you can just go back round to the other side of the pillar over here, where he just was. So like, imagine in this scenario, this is where you want to be in a second, so you're on range prey, blob is about to hit you mage, you go back across, and you're already in the major, and it's nice and set up. This is like... it's not bad. I mean, if it works, it works, but it just seems excessive and not useful, because the other setup is just smoother, to put it simply. Also, there would be less problems in different types of waves where you have like melees around the sides and shit. So good chin setup, takes the step back, which is very nice. Yeah, just a small thing again. It's all the small things adding up. Good barrage. Awkward wave here. The only way to really deal with this is to off-tick it carefully. That is pretty good, actually. Even I don't like to do that. Use that sort of like line of sight from the ranger. My preference here is to just come round to the east, to the west side and off-tick the major into the ranger, rather than vice versa. This is some interesting gameplay. There we go. Took a second, but he's got the off-tick, so no problem. That's not the kind of mistake that I'll comment on, because that's just a misplay, as opposed to like things that are obviously losing time repeatedly. Nice Kodai bash though, nice Kodai bash. Doing the right thing here, just getting rid of the bats, taking them down. Definitely nothing wrong with that. And I'd like to see, in the ideal world, it'd be nice to come round to the north of the pillar yet again to drag the ranger closer. But this works too. You can definitely get back to the clump in time. The only difference is from the south side of the blob here, you will have to chin the ranger if he chooses to go for the blob first, which is not as accurate. So it's just a minor sort of, you know, you want to be on the north side of the blob when possible. So now if he moves closer to the blob... Ah, okay. When doing this, if you want to get the clump and not lose ticks, you'll have to stand up here, where my mouse is right now, and the melee will be on this tile here, so you can chin the ranger. You can still reach the ranger, this ranger, the big ranger, in that time by standing here, and then moving in. But yeah, that's not worth losing the time to go to the blob there, as opposed to just having a 2-stack to chin. So... Pillar's about 55% HP, 50-ish percent HP, which is definitely very fine at this point in time. It is, however, the only pillar alive, so... Pillar preference, I feel, is pretty much just that. It's like, how much are you willing to risk your pillar? Are you happy to play under the pressure of a low pillar? Are you happy to defend it? So, I leave that very much up to the person who is playing at the time. Going round to the west side here to drag that blob closer would be my preference, so moving over to this tile here, which you can do by stepping here and then stepping across, you'll always get pulled out. That means the blob is closer. However, a chin transition, by no means the worst thing to do either. This is fine. You do lose the time killing... You do lose the bit of time not killing the blob first again, but this was an awkward wave, so... Not really holding that one. We have melee now. Yep, definitely a good move. 2 nibblers on the pillar, don't want to fuck with that. Need to watch those XP drops though. In a case like that, where you're going after a nibbler and you're not sure of his XP because you might have chinned it, and you might have hit multiple, and you might not see the XP, you might not see the HP of it. One thing to mitigate tick loss with blowpipe is to click the nibbler, and if it's like a 48 XP or something, and you're like, well, it's probably dead because I might have damaged it before, but I'm not sure, then you can just click the melee and chain a hit on the melee, and then check the nibbler again. This is something I do a lot more to sort of, again, just mitigate tick loss. Like, if I'm going after a bat and I'm not certain if it's, like, dead, it could be a bat that's, you know, behind an NPC, it could have respawned, it could have not, I wasn't paying attention, and I hit, like, a 69 XP or a 64 XP, or sorry, a 69 XP, and it's like, that probably is dead in my brain, it's like, that's dead. But I might have just hit half its HP on a random blowpipe hit. So in order to like not lose time thinking about did I kill the bat, and if it is actually dead, then I can't attack it and I lose the ticks attacking something else. Instead, all I'm doing is, if there's a ranger next to me, I'm like, okay, the bat might be dead, it might not, click the ranger for a tick, check the bat, now go back on the bat. And that's a really nice thing to, that's a really nice habit to get into in order to just mitigate tick loss of all sorts. That's an interesting way of safe spotting. It do work though. I would have killed the melee first here again, the 2 tick time save, as opposed to killing the ranger. All details. Yeah, that blowpipe chaining is a really cool skill to learn and to focus on, so. Another thing to add to the arsenal, that's a very unhumble ranger hit, that's annoying. Good safe spot here, and if he wants to, he can use the bat safe spot in a second, or just come round since those are trapped. Very nice. Yeah, not a very humble ranger at all, that's very annoying. He could have definitely kept the melee alive and gone to this position in the same way. It would still be safe. And right now, with the melee back on the field, thinking about where it's going to dig and how to get rid of it immediately is also a nice idea. That worked out. I didn't think that would. Okay, okay, okay. So that melee's been in the field long enough now that I'm scared of it digging in the next, like, 5-7 seconds. I would go into range of that. I don't think it will have the chance to dig, but it got fairly close, I'd say. Melee dig timings are always annoying, even at any level, I'm willing to say. They just sometimes dig right on that moment that you don't want them to. This isn't the play right here. So it's a good gut reaction to the wave, but it's not the right solution. In this position, you have Major... Sorry, screen goes dark when I pause, but you have Major and Blob right here. There's nothing else in play. The Ranger is going to be safe spotted no matter where you go. You can just come over to this side and click the Ranger, click the Major. Even if the Major spawns really far over here, it's fine to do that. You can just stand 3 tiles and the melee can never get you. But now he has to set up this off tick and it's awkward going back, and it's like, you just don't need to do this. You can just sit here on this tile. So, slight adjustment to wave solution, nothing big again. I don't think there was any ticks lost in this setup, so I can't really fault it. But it's nice to not have to worry about the Ranger as well. Again, if done correctly, then it's whatever. It's just sort of a technical thing, a little thing. I should probably stop saying it's little things, because these, again, are the things that add up. Good chin transition, but I think there was a tick delay in doing so. And barraging for some HP, which I think is fine given the current brew count and predicament. Actually, no, he's got a fair amount of brews. I take that back. I thought he had less. I would have just sipped 3 brew doses here. It's definitely fine to allocate, like, okay, I need 3 brews for Zuck if I'm doing skips. And just thinking, like, those brews cannot... You know, those brews have to exist for Zuck, otherwise it's over. But as far as the other brews, I mean, a couple of doses for potting up during, after, before Jadson around that time. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, definitely using brew to push waves is very good. Because no one ever needs 5 for, like, waves and Zuck. Especially if you're barely touching them in waves. Unfortunate timing on the dig. The solution to prevent it from happening is just, but simply to make sure that you actually kill the melee after the Major on this side. Just drag it back round again and stand here. Or stand there and click them both. As for the blob, killing the blob first isn't useful if you're going to waste a tick running over there and not attack the Ranger in the 2 ticks available. I'll break this down one final time since we're nearing the end of the waves, but in this example here, if you just kill the Ranger then the blob, you're losing 2 ticks effectively, whereas if you do this, you're losing 1, 2, 3 ticks there. So there was a tick where he attacked the Ranger, but the intermittent running and then setup was like, it's still tick loss. Like, there's 1 attack, 2, 3, I don't know, I just feel like that's a waste there. If you want to have a better clump, you can just kill it secondarily. So this is definitely one of the big recurring themes, is to manage your time as you kill blobs, otherwise don't bother with it. But it's definitely a good thing to try and do. It's just about getting those attacks in or creating the space to attack in that time. Pillar's definitely fine, about 35%. Melee in a nice free kill position. This is definitely a kill melee. Because we have the blob at the back of that stack there, that's like not something I'd ever want to flick personally, so kill melee is for sure the right call in this case. And now we pray that the T-bow kills the Major before the melee is respawned. Ah, that's a bat. Okay, that's a melee. Okay, yeah. A little bit unlucky with the respawns, honestly, in the run. I think probably more than I would have expected to be respawned has been respawned. This is a nice chin. It's actually hitting the blob and the... Wait, is it? No, I don't think it was. It might have been for the one or two chins. It looked good for a second there. Yeah, definitely a bit unlucky with the spawns on this. But I think there were certainly, I'd say, 3 waves where the melee didn't have to die. another example here for dealing with blobs. It's like you kill the blob first, okay, 1 attack, 2 attack, you get 1 on the ranger, then you have to go over and tick, I think? I don't know, it just feels awkward. By far the biggest takeaway will be dealing with blobs better. Two blobs seeing the north side, one is trapped, good. Unlocking the other one to get on the nibbler, this is fine. And now this is a really awkward pillar stack. The way to solve this is to go 4 tiles back here. This also works to prevent the ranger from seeing you. So he went for in this stack, whenever there's an NPC that is 4 tiles wide, there's 2 ways to do this. The first school of thought is this, where he goes all the way back and out 1, and the back NPC does not see you. And the slightly easier way is to come back 4 tiles, which is 1 tile less, and then it will off-tick. Either of them work, just pointing it out. There's nothing that's technically right or wrong here. At least I don't think. Yeah, okay, I think he prayed a range there instead of mage there. This is fine though. Coming out to that 4th tile sets up an automatic 1-tick alternate, which for this kind of wave is useful, I guess, as opposed to potentially 2-ticking because the back NPC can't see you, and then you have to walk into range on a tick, which is why the 4-tile thing is slightly better than the 5-tile thing. But that's really coming down to like specifics of flicking and where the blobs are on the west side, so yeah. Good movements here. Gets the attack off there. Could have even gone for 1 on the ranger, maybe if brave, but I think that's fine. That's much better blob timing for making use of those 2 ticks. And tick lossless onto the ranger. Good. Two melee spawns, which means if we think ahead about what's going to happen, we are going to get the range and mage stack behind the pillar, which means going for an instant off tick on the mage range in a classical stack will work from the positions these melees are, and if he wants to, he can go for it now. Lovely. Ooh, hello, nearly a triple flick. I might have been for a second there, no damage taken. After throwing that chin, I would have just moved to this position immediately. And this is a good movement right now because this movement here will allow the melees to dig and then he'll trap them, like so. Very cool. Yeah, good timing, good timing. I always find it weird how like the double melee wave, they dig together even if one of them got hit. It's like, even if one of them is attacking you, it's super weird how that timing works. Still don't understand it. Technically speaking, chinning 2 melees isn't better than blowpiping them separately. That being said, if they're both really low HP, I personally will chance it, just for the sake of it, because if you hit a big chin and you do eliminate them, it is a nice time save. But at that point, you really are just playing with RNG. It is, by default, better to blowpipe them. Annoyingly. As much as, I mean, I love to use chins as much as the next person does. Ooh, that's a scary range hit. Well handled, though. Well handled under pressure. Got to off-tick that ranger behind the pillar. Done perfectly. Good. Yeah, unlucky ranger hits, honestly. That was well played, though. If you can save that pillar for the mages, it'd be good, but I think it's a little bit too low at this stage, so I have a feeling that pillar is going bye-bye without it being able to hit a major. Yeah, really nice solution, though. Calm under pressure and made the right call there. I think he tick 8 one of the ranger hits as well, so very good. That's one of the more respectable / cool off-ticks, and a nice blood barrage to finish up the waves. A little bit early there, albeit. Okay, double major. Doesn't really matter where you start here, but it needs to be quite central, because if you have 2 of them spawning on the far back south side, you are simply never going to get them in time. You'll lose like 3 or 4 ticks running to them if you start like that. So being in this sort of like where my mouse is right now, anywhere around here is pretty good to start. Sometimes even further up, depending. just prevents another 3 or 4 tick time loss in this wave. So, supplies has 1 Sanfu and 3 doses, which is a little bit less than I personally like, but I don't 1-tick flick very much, so I think he'll be fine. 2-dose Divine is good. He's used range pot quite a bit in the waves, which is perfectly fine, and has over a full one for the Jads and Zuck, which is enough to work with. I'm not actually sure what kind of skips he's doing. I assume it's just a Jad skip with maybe healers. We'll see. Well, probably Jad and healers, yeah. As for brews, 4 brews and... am I reading that right? Sorry, 3 brews and 3 doses. So used 1 brew and 1 dose in the waves. I do think he could definitely brew a little bit more in the waves, especially in times where you're going to get like big NPC plus melee plus blob plus amount of bats. So like any big stack wave that's coming, there's no real reason to not brew, I suppose. This chin here can just be targeted at Jad. So instead of targeting the single healer over here, Jad's southwest is covering both of these guys. So chinning Jad is a 3-tick time save and a heal on Jad save. Yeah, brew usage need a little bit of work. There are certain times in this run where I feel like his HP is very, very consistently low. It's partially due to Ellie, although not like the biggest deal due to Ellie, but it's also partially because of just big ranger hits getting quite unlucky on him. This is some new meta, fucking chinning these guys to hit Jad. I'm kind of interested in that. That kind of worked out quite well. I don't think that's effective, but I mean, it was kind of cool. But you know, if you have like a blowpipe spec available and you have brew available, sometimes in like, you know, if it's a late wave and you know it's a shit wave next and you really want that HP for peace of mind and for like a crazy off tick you plan on doing, then a lot of these cases I like to use the blowpipe spec on a ranger. I'll brew after using the blowpipe spec, and then I'll follow that up with a redivine into a blood barrage to finish up the wave. And it's like, if you're 40 HP and you get a good spec and you brew 3 times... What the hell? I have no clue why I can hear stuff. Ah, there we go, sorry. Unmuted from the VOD. All the rest of the VOD is muted. Yeah, so, like, choosing specific waves, I suppose, in this case, to use a spec, triple brew, and then Phantom Barrage, if it's like just a ranger left, it can put you from like 30-40 HP to 99, and that sort of safety net that you can just deploy at a moment's notice is really nice. So I don't think... I think using brews with blowpipe spec, with barrage, using all of your examples, using all of your tools at your disposal to heal in one go, as like just a burst heal, at the bare minimum, you're getting 3 brews worth of healing, 3 doses worth of healing. At the maximum, you're getting like a 50 blowpipe spec, a 5, 10, a 5 or 6 barrage. It really adds up. So yeah, it's just more about sort of, do I have a safety net? Okay, deploy just everything, and sometimes it works out really well. And that'll make the next sort of 3 waves a lot easier. Having HP opens up options. Again, like, sure, you can't get time back, but you can get HP back. But you can really get HP back effectively, and having HP in the first place broadens your options. It means that if you're in a shit situation, sometimes you can just tank the melee. Sometimes you get 3 hit. Well, haven't been commenting much on triples. They are just triple Jads. He has clicked them and they have died. I think this is a good summary. And we're on to the finale. It is Zook. Entering Zuck at 53 minutes and about 20 seconds, which is not quite good enough for a sub 55. You'd want to be here at about 52 at the latest. So he's only about a minute off getting that nice potential. A full skip at Zuck is about 3 minutes and 20 seconds worth of time. So I don't think he's leaving Major up. I may be wrong. but having major or killing major will be an extra 20 seconds added on. So expecting a 340 Zuck on at like an average pace. These T-bow hits are really good though, so we're definitely above the average already. It's a left shield start, so we'll see how he decides to tag things. Dude, T-bow's popping. 800, this is like pretty close to no set potential if he had another 2 hits available. Yeah, look, 2 more hits would have done it here. Honestly, 1 more hit would have done it here, that's crazy. So we shall see what he decides to do. Doing the classical set tagging method, very good. Nice. I'd spend the blowpipe spec here after using a divine dose, just to try and get that HP back, but it doesn't matter too much as long as that divine gets popped and a heal gets used. You may end up speccing the major, although of course using it on a ranger or a healer is more viable, more useful. Again, we'll see what kind of skips happen here. Is my man gonna do a mage shed? He is. This is what we call gaming. Looks like the tag was good. Yeah, nothing much to fault here on Zuck. I mean, there might just be like 1 or 2 ticks lost for various reasons, but I mean, he's doing Zuck and he's doing it fine. I'd probably camp prayer at this point. There's really no need to, well, not camp prayer. It's possible to get 1 extra T-bow hit there instead of playing it safe, but playing it safe is, well, it's fine. The one thing he hasn't done is dragged the major towards the east side of the room, which doesn't really make a difference, but it's a good idea to do so when possible, just to allow you to dodge across. Decent tag was about like, I think it got to about 360, so pretty good tagging. See how he uses these brewers. If you're doing a full skip like this and you're doing mage, jad, healer, I think it's advisable to try and keep about 6 doses of range pot on you to do brew, range pot, brew, range pot, brew, range pot. So if you're doing like, oh, he has, maybe he did drag the major. I might have been blind. I wasn't really paying attention. He might have dragged the major earlier. But it's nice to get a bit more range pot to keep your level up. Brew range pot is ridiculously OP when it comes to this kind of skip. Great, actually a pretty good Zuck. And we come out with the 5632, 1 minute 33 seconds, which is a special time away from the sub 55 barrier, which I think he'll get pretty damn quickly, to be honest. But yeah, so some key takeaway points I think is like early waves, broaden the camera angle, play a little bit more vertical, get a bigger sort of sense of area. Seeing NPCs on the board sort of gives you a better idea of what to do. Killing blobs needs to be looked at in depth to start thinking about the time saves of attacking between the death animation and grouping correctly. That's a big one. That's a really big one. And then I'd say lastly, the major thing would be like, use your brew doses in the wave. You ended up with 5 doses here, like extra brew doses in the waves that you could use. And that will really help just keep your sort of HP at a stable level that makes waves easier and gives you peace of mind. But honestly, a good run. I see nothing stopping you from getting sub 55 pretty easily. And you get the back-to-back as well with the Slayer cape, so that's even even nicer. Right, that's all from me today. I've got another run of these to have a look at over the next few days. I'll get around to it at some point. But yeah, and if anyone's interested in me having a look at some of these runs for speeding, as long as your run is between 50 and 65 minutes, I'll be happy to review it at some point. Just let me know on Discord. Yeah, until then, consider joining the one and only Inferno Discord, links in the description, and check out Incoxicated on Twitch. I will also leave his links there alongside the Inferno Discord. Alright guys, see you later, thanks for watching.